already talk fast. And so if you have problems keeping up, there's just questions. We're going to do a couple of polls, hopefully, with Mo. I think you've got control of the polls, because I don't think that can be me, but let me make sure.
Yep, I can push those.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So Mo, it's going to be you. And I tell you, we've got a few polls. We want to kind of figure out where people are at in certain things, so we can share some data with all of the people following this, and looking forward to giving you some good insight on what we can do. So, I mean, the digital marketing world have been for about a decade. We love data. So we start off with just some bullet points here on numbers, which is what we're looking at all day, every day in the SEM world. Little data about me. 10 years in the digital marketing space. Started with an agency. I became CEO of about 2009 is when we started that one. My wife and I own 5 businesses. We do have 4 kids between the ages of 2 and 7. We live on 8 acres outside Portland, so I do a lot of lawn mowing. And if you're one of the millennials I work with, I'm pretty much just considered crazy. They don't have any grasp of what you do with 4 kids between 2 and 7. So it's a lot of movement. Logical position, again, same data. Logical position started around 2009 as well. We've got 6,300 total clients under management. Just about half of them are e-commerce. And we've got 650 employees across the country. We do have 9 offices, although we're not actually in any of them right now. And we're actually hoping to be able to open our 10th in Miami. We've got to get through this fun little quarantine scenario and figure out what it looks like on the other side. But today we're going to talk through setting and executing the right goals for SEM. Being in the space long enough and talking to enough businesses, there's just a lot of misinformation around what kind of goals you need to be setting as a business owner or an executive team, or even just a marketing director. What does that look like for your team? So we're going to look a little bit at the business landscape. We're going to align the SEM goals. There's some new things on Google I want to touch on that I think a lot of people probably have questions about. And then this morning I was actually given permission to release a little bit of a bonus on something coming down the pipeline from Google that I think is going to be exciting for anybody in the e-commerce space. So when we as business owners start businesses, this is kind of what we expect our businesses to do. You know, up and to the right, nobody necessarily decides to set a goal where you fall off a cliff on the other side of that. It happens, but getting to this space and seeing that growth is not always the most easy thing. But a lot of what we can do is set goals to help get our business there. And to set the stage, this is kind of like the goal of a business. Like if you could get to the Fortune 500, it's like, wow, I became one of the largest, most successful businesses. Great to set that goal to get there. Not every business owner has that goal, but we can pretty much agree that if you hit that target and you become a Fortune 500 company, you've become extremely successful. In fact, when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, GE was pretty much the business to work for. I mean, this gentleman, Jack Welch, who recently passed, unfortunately, was a guy I looked up to. I figured out pretty early on I was not going to be a basketball star. Loved Jordan, loved the ESPN special because that was me. Loved playing in the driveway, but I knew pretty quickly my parents were not going to bless me with the genes to be able to play basketball or be a professional athlete, so I was going to be in business. So I latched on pretty quickly to business strategy and goals. But if you followed GE in the 80s and 90s, where they were hugely successful, dominating, they would be either number 1 or 2 in a business or they would get out of it. Now, I don't think they're number 1 or 2 in almost anything. They are a shell of their former self. So that business has just tumbled, and it seems like it was quick. I mean, it's been about 20 years, but it just feels like, gosh, GE, like one of the longest tenured businesses, one of the most successful businesses now, you know, their stock is fractions of what it is. I don't even buy it at the price it's at now because it's pretty sad. But what does that do? The 500 was released in 1955 with 500 original businesses, obviously. And by 2020, only 60 of those businesses remained. So over 65 years, 88% of the largest businesses on the planet, most successful businesses on the planet, were bankrupt, acquired, or failed to keep growing and fell down the list. That is an insane number. It's hard for me to fathom that as I look at all of these great businesses that are on the Fortune 500 now, knowing that, man, in not too long, that's probably just 2 generations of business leaders for the most part, and that business falls off the map. Insane. The other measure to look at, Standard & Poor's, the S&P 500, This is a fascinating stat. It started in 1965. And in 1965, the average duration that a business would be on that list was 33 years. They forecast that in 2026, it's only going to be 14 years. That's how long you have to live on a business list of the largest businesses. That is kind of disheartening to a degree, but also really exciting because the biggest businesses are not going to be there. So if you are not one of those biggest businesses, which I'm currently not, but I want to be, that means the doors are opening very, very quickly. And you have to strike where the opportunity is hot to get into that space. We are changing and moving and evolving so quickly. The pace of change has just been magnified. We are on not a linear curve of change, but an exponential curve to change. Things like Bolt come out and simplify checkout. It's just amazing how quickly things can change. And so we as businesses not only have to be ready to change quickly and evolve as the different metrics we're watching and paying attention to change, but just know that whoever's ahead of us now is not going to be there forever if we have something to say about it. Digital marketing is one of those levers we as smaller businesses have to push and pull to overcome larger businesses. And as larger businesses, you can keep competitors at bay by leveraging digital marketing correctly. Now, being in this space as long as I have been, I have had hundreds, if not thousands, of one-on-one conversations with business owners, marketing directors, executive teams of billion-dollar organizations to startups. And the digital marketing goal setting is it's a frustrating one because there's no real clear direction. You don't go to business school and learn what should your digital marketing goals be. It's just not at this point. When I went through in the late 90s, it wasn't a class. Now I know there's digital marketing courses, but at the same time, there's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all goal because every business is setting a different goal. So the key is to be able to set your digital marketing goals and align them with your business goals so that you're going into the same direction. And when I look at online businesses, you basically have three categories of what you can do to move the lever. So you have traffic coming to the site, the different types of traffic you can have there. You have converting that traffic on the site, different things you can do to the site, things you can add on, improve things. You can use discounts, suggestions, Bolt, for example, improving conversion rates. Then you can also move to retain and grow. Like after they've converted, what do you do with them after they've become a client? How do you get them to come back to you with loyalty? Even the people that didn't convert, how do you remarket to them? People that did convert, are you remarketing to them? So there's kind of three buckets here. And most of my time is spent on the traffic generation side. That's what Logical Position is really good at, is driving the traffic. We have partners that can help you convert better on the site and partners that can help you retain and grow your client base. But we're going to focus obviously on the traffic side. And with you have paid search goals, you have to understand the different areas that paid search hits in the overall funnel of your traffic coming to the site. The further down the funnel you get, the more likely they are to buy. And so when you're at the very bottom, they're looking for your brand. You're remarketing to people that have already been to your site. When you move up the funnel to the top, you're trying to get people to become aware of your brand, somewhat to the degree like social influencers. You want people to be aware of what's going on with your brand and say, oh, I've never heard of that, but this person likes it. I need to go check that out because before I hadn't thought about it. And so just conceptually understanding that is important to how we set goals within the paid search space. And what happens now is it's not necessarily very clear on how you are coming to a site to purchase. This is, number one, a great meal. My daughter's favorite meal is noodles. But this is also the typical conversion path. So it's like my wife's conversion path. She's got it's all over different noodles. She'll hit a few meatballs on the way there. She'll start on social. She'll end up doing a search on Google. Then she's going to click on a remarketing ad. Then she's going to do some research on Google Shopping. Then she might jump into Amazon and then come back to Google. It's insane. There's no digital marketer that's tracking my wife's conversions. It doesn't exist. My conversions are exactly opposite. Like I see something on Google Shopping, I click, I buy. Everybody knows my conversion path. But I'm the weird one. My wife is a normal one. This is how most people are converting. So you have to understand that people are going all over the place. So you set goals to track what you can, also knowing there's other things that you can't track. And we're going to touch on that later on as we talk about the actual impact of paid search beyond what you're seeing. But just, again, I'm setting the stage. You have to understand people are all over the place. But we can tell where paid search is hitting the funnel and driving people down the funnel into purchasing from your website. And so I'm going to walk you through a general conversation I have with business owners. All right. We're keeping math very simple today. 50% margin product. So if it's a $100 product, it costs you $50 to produce it and ship it. Basically, I put that all in together on the cost of goods sold. 50% average margin on the product. Business owner, it's like, hey, I want to make profit. Therefore, I set a 5x return on ad spend on my paid search. That's just what I've always done. I'm going to keep doing it. So that's my goal is 5x. Like, okay, great. What do you want to grow? I want to grow 10% year over year. Why do you want to grow that? Well, somebody told me at a conference a while ago, and we've just always had that goal. Okay, great. That's what we're going to shoot for because you said so. You're the business owner. Let's go for that. So this is how it plays out. Last year, you had $100,000 in revenue. You want to grow 10%. You're going to get $110,000 of revenue from attributed to paid search in this scenario. Cost you $20,000 to do it. We're going to add 10%. It's going to spend $22,000 to get there. $22,000 becomes $110,000 in revenue. Great. Life is awesome. You have a money printing machine. Isn't everybody happy? Obviously, it doesn't always work out that way, but I want to talk a little bit about how that business owner should be looking at that goal. So that's actually really, really common. But there are some interesting things you can do in the math to help guide that goal and help make sure that paid search is meeting that business goal. And we're not going to get into tremendous theoretical applications of calculus. Tried that in college. Terrible, terrible class, unless you are a math major, which I was not. So really, as a business owner, when you're setting paid search goals, you need to decide, do you want profit now or do you want profit later? It's not that you can't have both, but generally when you're setting goals for paid search, they don't align at the same time. And so lightning can strike. There's always exceptions to rules, but we're talking about the masses here, what most people on this call can shoot for and what they should be looking at. And so underneath that, you also have two pieces of your SEM. You have brand and non-brand. This is where a lot of businesses start to fail on paid search goals, is they push these together into one goal and say, all right, I want a 5X. I don't care how we get it. Like, I can take any brand on this call and increase your return on ad spend immediately just by cutting out non-brand. The people that haven't heard of you, the people that are looking for your product or service but don't know your brand yet. People that know your brand are going to convert at a very high rate. They're going to be very, very profitable, but you can't necessarily control the return on your brand. You just know it's going to be profitable, but it's at the nuances of Google and what are they going to put on their search page? How are they going to put your ad? What extensions are they going to show? What products are they going to show? What mix of it? What are your competitors doing? So much is out of your control on brand return. Sometimes it may be a 20x, sometimes it may be 65x. You know, we have brands all through this game. Some brands only get like an 8 or 9x on their brand terms, but just know that it's going to be profitable. So you don't focus on setting a goal for that. You separate it out, say, I want to cover it, I want to be there. If you want to debate me on the value of being on your brand terms, we can talk offline. We've done studies with the Dallas Cowboys, who are a client of ours, that Jerry Jones didn't think his brand name be valuable. Turns out it is, and they bid on their brand terms when the season's in and the actual budget to play with. So we're not going to debate that, but non-brand, that's where we're actually going to focus our efforts on our goal setting. So again, we've got 50% margin on our products. We're staying with the same business idea. Business wants profit now. For whatever reason, they need profit now, whether it's covering their retail space that they're not in right now, or it's just, hey, we've always had profit. We want profit now. We're not going to give that up. We use this as a profit center, and our marketing team is incentivized on that. Okay, great. We're going to focus on non-brand. That's where you set your goal for your profit, knowing that you're getting profit from brand terms. So you got your 5X goal. We're going to play this out. You got $55,000 of profit on $110,000 of revenue. You spent $22,000 on ad spend to get that. Let's say you spent money on an agency to manage it for you. If you have an internal team, you can put their number in here and how much of their time was dedicated to this, but you have to have something that's managing that because it doesn't just happen. There are some smart campaigns you can throw on Google. Not for every brand, and for most brands it's not appropriate, but we'll dive into that at a different time. So your total cost of generating that $55,000 of profit was $24,200. Not complicated. We had an overall profit from a 5X goal on non-brand terms of $30,800. Again, not terrible. You made money, can't complain. But let's challenge this as a business owner or executive team. Let's go down to a 4X. This isn't how it always plays out, but it often is. If you lower your goal, yes, you're making lower margin per unit, but you can expand because you can get more aggressive and cover more of the available market out there. And so you can capture additional customers. So your $200,000 of revenue equaled $100,000 of profit. You spent 50 grand for it. Again, $5,000 of agency fee there. At the end of the day, $45,000 of profit from paid search. So this is something that we have to think about as a business. It's called profit maximization. If you're going for a profit now, you don't necessarily set a target and shoot for that as a return on ad spend because it sounds good. What you're really looking for is profit maximization, which it could be a 4x, could be a 3x, could be 3.5, a 6x for all we know. But you have to start looking at that number and adjusting your paid search opportunities and your optimizations for that as you scale that. So be aware that lower return on ad spend could mean more profit. And a lot of the way I look at this is on a supply demand curve. It's not exact science, but this does hold true. And we've got thousands of clients, and it does hold true quite often that as you push for more volume, you do get the less marginal utility profit on that order, but you're getting a much higher volume of those. So this is where you have to start testing that. Don't shoot for a 5x because you always have and it's profitable. Shoot maybe for a 4x, maybe a 3.5. Just see where that is for your brand. It's going to take some testing and measuring. It can be uncomfortable to see some of that change as a business owner or an executive team, but it's important to see what that looks like for your brand. Now, the other way of looking at that is looking at profit later. This is where I operate at for my personal brands. I want to put competitors out of business. I want to salt the earth behind me. I don't necessarily care about profit now. I want as much profit later as I can capture. And I focus that on non-brand terms. Again, how can I maximize my future profits in my business by focusing on non-brand? And for a company of mine that has a 50% margin product, I get a 2x. I break even. I will spend all day long. I'll spend 100 grand tomorrow to bring $100,000 of profit in, if that means I get a ton of clients that could have gone to my competitors. So in taking with this, the same example where we're going to push more aggressively, less marginal utility, we're going to spend down to that break-even mark. I spend $200,000 for $400,000 in revenue. Again, I did not make money, but I got a bunch of new customers. I get those emails for future profit. Email, hands down, is the most profitable marketing you have. If you're a business that does paid search, that does Amazon, that does social, and you have email coming into your analytics, you look at how much you spend on email versus how much money you're making. The larger you can grow your email database, the more profit you will have in your overall business. Email is crazy profitable, and it's the people that have bought from you. So if you have a product that you believe in, you know people are going to buy again, you want those emails. There are some exceptions. Mattresses, for example, you can spend all day on getting a mattress to break even, but if you don't have potential future profits built in, like you're going to sell sheets, you're going to sell pillows, you're going to sell nightstands, you're going to sell bed, you have to sell other things beyond just a one-time purchase like that. That's where this makes sense. If you don't have that, you should probably start thinking about it, but you have to start shooting for profit now rather than profit later. So adjust your business model maybe to a degree and look at how do you generate future business. It's very important. And what I love, because of how competitive I am, is that my competitors are not getting this customer. So if somebody searches for your product, but not your brand, they're just looking for what you sell or what you make, that person is what I consider a free agent. They're going to buy from somebody. They've given us all the indicators, the intent that they want to buy that product. You or your competitor is going to get in front of them and get that sale. In every scenario, if I can afford it, I will be in front of that to get the sale from my competitor. For me, that's a value. Every business owner, that is not. So that's where the business goal has to be aligned with the paid search goal. If the business owner is not hyper competitive, thinks there's enough business for everybody and doesn't care if his competitors get business as well, that's fine. Everybody gets to set their own goals. For me personally, not my goal. But there are some additional perks besides just getting new customers for spending more aggressively on non-brand shopping specifically. So non-brand shopping on Google, Bing, Yahoo to a degree, but they take it from Google and Bing, is you get what we call a halo effect. So if you look at this, your non-brand shopping right in the middle of that, the larger that gets, the more aggressively you spend there, even if it's to break even, your organic traffic goes up, your email traffic or revenue will go up, your direct traffic and revenue will go up. And largely that's because that people are in that big bowl of spaghetti that they're all over the place. They clicked on shopping, and then they went back and found you on social, and then got an email from a bounce email that came back and purchased. So when people are converting like this, breaking even on paid shopping on the non-brand side is hugely profitable still, because you've got all these other things that are happening. And the easiest way to see that is in assisted conversions in analytics. You can, if you label your campaigns correctly, you can see non-brand shopping on the assisted conversions tab of analytics, and you'll see what is it pushing that it's not actually getting credit for. So if it's getting credit for $10,000 in sales and analytics, you might see $15,000 to $20,000 in assisted conversions that it's actually not getting credit for. So if you remove non-brand shopping altogether, not all of those assisted conversions are going to go through. Like, it's pushing people along the path to convert. And so there's a lot of ancillary benefits to that. So that's going to finish our segment on goal setting. We can adjust, we go to goals there, but I want to touch real quick on a poll. I want to find out for everybody here, Mo, the first poll I believe is, what have you done on your spend in the last month? Got it. So everybody can tell you got to vote. We'll keep it up for a couple seconds. So if you've cut your ad spend, eliminated, increased, or weren't advertising before this wonderful COVID scenario, I'm going to answer mine and how I'm running my brands. And then Mo, whenever you get a chance and everybody submitted, or most people have, just throw it up there and it'll give us the numbers of what people have actually been doing. Or you can just, if it's not popping up, it doesn't, depends on the Zoom settings, you can just chat me and I'll read it to people on what we are doing. All right, so looks like nobody stayed the same. People eliminated branding and kept all the rest in their work here on paid search. All right, and let's find a little bit more on the next poll. I believe, Mo, is the data around what type of businesses do we have on this call. So if you want to go ahead and throw that one up. All right, let's find out, what kind of business are you? Are you lead gen or a local business? Are you an e-commerce business or an agency, an online business vendor? So go ahead and submit that real quick and we'll throw some of those data out and give you some insights here. And if we can't do it, we can go through those at the end too and kind of give you the insights on what we have available. And all right, any data from that, Mo? Are there half of us e-commerce, 75% of us e-commerce? All right, we will come back to those as we push through this. All right, so most of you have heard about free shopping. It's Google released it, I want to say 2 weeks ago, where they're saying, hey, free shopping, isn't it exciting? So let's dive into the details of that real quick. So if you're on the first page of Google and you search for dark roast coffee, people are drinking a lot of coffee at home right now. One of the reasons I talk fast, I've got an espresso machine right here. I pump myself full of coffee in the morning before I get on webinars. It's awesome. It's this little button right here, this shopping tab. So you click onto that shopping tab and enter into Google Shopping, and it'll now give you results that are free as well as paid. And so what do we know about free shopping? Clicking into that tab is low volume, and so there's not a lot of people going there now. Google's really trying to compete with Amazon as far as a marketplace to find product. As of right now, Google's a lot better for discovery of product. Amazon's not there yet as far as product discovery, generally speaking. They're both working on that with Google for over a decade. And their largest engineering office is in New York, where they own the Port Authority building and the Meatpacking District. That in place 10 years ago was improved and compete. So far, they've just not been phenomenal at it. They're getting better. But we know, because Google has not given us details on how many people actually click on that tab, that my gut tells me it's not a high number. We're actually seeing some data now, and I'll explain in a second that how we find out, but there's just not a lot of people shopping there yet, but that is coming. So when you go into that area, your feed is going to be important. So if you're in e-commerce and you're advertising on Google or Bing, or you're going to Amazon or Facebook, you probably have a feed of products you're sending somewhere. your feed is going to become more important in that organic space, and how you're categorizing products, how you're matching them up with competitors, and how everybody's selling the same product, or if you have different products, what kind of data you're putting into your feed to allow people to see that. In this space, because it is relatively new, you have to be testing and measuring a lot, though. There's no right or wrong at this point. There's what we know about best practices, which I'll touch on, but just know that what is working today may not be working tomorrow. Google's constantly doing changes and upgrades to their organic algorithm, to paid search. I joke with a lot of companies that the reason I still have a job is because Google changes. If Google stayed the same, nobody would need somebody like me that understands digital marketing. So test and measure it, and usually try to test it not across the entire feed. I want to test it on certain products and see the movement of those. If you remember, if you've been around long as I have, you remember something called Frugal, which was free Google Shopping before they decided, hey, we can make a lot of money on this. So we're kind of going back to the Frugal days in how things look and feel and how we're looking at data. So inside that, we have, this is what it looks like if you're searching for a guitar inside of Google Shopping, or at least it did a week ago when I took the snapshot. You'll have these at the top. This top band is paid ads. And then the bottom band here, where you have this little about, that is, it'll tell you if you click on it, hey, Google's not getting paid for these clicks. Everything below this is free. I would anticipate as you start scrolling that and Google starts seeing more and more data, they're going to sparse in sponsored links throughout that, kind of the way Amazon does on their product discovery. Clicking into the first position here, what you'll see is, all right, we have all of the people that are selling the Rogue RA 090 Dreadnought acoustic guitar, okay? They all have the same price point, but this one won. Guitar Center beat out Musician's Friend and Woodwind and Brass. Funny enough, these are all the same company. Not everybody knows that. But Guitar Center wins. And so it has to do with shipping. It has to do with overall tax. So if another retailer is selling the same product you are, but you're charging for shipping and they're not, but you're at the same MSRP or IMAP, then the one without shipping costs is going to win that. We're also seeing that merchant reviews are more and more important. So if you are not collecting merchant reviews, you need to be, and you need to be having a high rate. So there's a difference among companies that collect reviews. It depends on volume and overall rating. And so those are the things you need to be aware of there. Also, being able to share reviews with Google is important. So this is kind of like the Google buy box now. So Amazon's been popular. Oh, got to win the buy box, got to win the buy box. Google has one now. And so a lot of the same things will go into that. Shipping time is important. So if you process an order for 3 days and it takes 10 days on ground to get there, Google is now taking schema markup to rank shipping times. And that's a big factor in this. So the two types of reviews, merchant and product, make sure you're using a preferred review aggregator. So just because Shopify collects reviews on a Shopify site doesn't mean they can send reviews to Google. They actually can't. They're not an approved aggregator. So you have to find a preferred aggregator. You got to be able to send those, and Google has to be able to trust them. So that's important to know when you're talking to somebody about getting reviews for your brand. Feeds, if you go into the Google Merchant Center, there's going to be the Google Shopping section, and now there is a Screens Across Google section. That includes Google's organic shopping traffic. So you're going to start seeing that traffic show up in Google Merchant Center. So to start watching it there, and if you're going to optimize your feed or make changes, that's where you're going to see the change in it. I have seen some brands attempt at tagging and trying to tag feeds so they can start seeing it on Google Shopping or the free shopping section of Google. Note that if you are tagging, and I've only seen it done poorly, I have not seen it done well. Like, I'm not actually tagging my own traffic. I'm using the Screens Across Google to track it. You're actually getting this free traffic. Some agencies are actually trying to manipulate their results by taking advantage of this free traffic and making it look in analytics like it came from a paid ad. That would be a no-no for me. So it depends on how you're tagging the feed in Google Merchant Center. Just make sure that it doesn't include paid search tags in the Merchant Center feed anymore. This is a great option, though, for if you sell CBD or you sell just things that Google doesn't like. Cigars, for example. There's been a lot of people that have wanted to advertise for cigars, especially in COVID. I've got a lot of friends buying boxes of cigars right now. This is an area that you can play, but you have to have a feed. So you have to have something going into the Google Merchant Center to be able to get it to show here. So even if you can't advertise, set up a Google Merchant Center, Start sending a feed there from your website. Most platforms have plugins that'll get it in there. Usually doesn't cost anything to at least get started, but eventually you're going to want somebody probably optimizing that feed for you. So you may need to look at a GoData feed or Feedonomics to get the products in there. We have a bonus today. I'm under NDA with Google, so I can't give you details, but there is a massive change coming to Google in July in the shopping space. It has to do with shipping. If you are a large advertiser, which means larger, not necessarily massive, but if you're spending over $10,000 a month in Google, there is some things I can give you some insight on that can help you get ahead of the competitors. Just know there is a really cool thing coming. I can't give you the details. We'd have to sign an NDA, so reach out to me. You'll have my email at the end of this. But awesome things coming in Google Shopping. I am so excited about this. We've been involved with Google since the alpha last year. The data is just amazing. For the companies that get first mover advantage in this, they're going to be leaps and bounds beyond their competitors. So reach out to me if you want to find some opportunities to get aggressive and hopefully put some competitors out of business before they have a chance to react. This could be an opportunity for you. Okay, so I'm going to go through a summary of what we talked about, and then I'm going to take a couple minutes and run through some of the strategies that we've identified during unique times like COVID and lockdowns. I don't think this is going to be the last time period in which the U.S. goes into a lockdown because of a virus. I think there's probably going to be a few of these over the next few years that we have to be aware of. And I want to at least give you some strategies on the types of businesses you are and what I would do if I were you and how some of my businesses have pivoted. Remembering what we just talked about, big now doesn't guarantee big later. And so small companies have a huge opportunity to compete. I mean, if we remember 20 years ago where Amazon basically didn't exist, even Yahoo was 20 years ago the leader in search engine in the world. Google was just a blip. Phenomenal how quickly things change. It's only increasing the frequency of change. It's important to align paid search goals with business goals. So the business goals need to start, and then you can match up your paid search goals to that. Just by doing what you've always done doesn't mean you're going to succeed or thrive. You have to be willing to pivot and adjust and test what's going to work for your business. You really boil it down into profit now or profit later. I prefer maximizing the later by just getting as many new customers into my brand as possible and then letting the brand bring people back in. Don't ignore the halo effect. There are a lot of things that get a boost from being aggressive in Google Shopping and Bing Shopping. It's just there's a huge perk, even if you're not seeing it in Google Ads or seeing it in the last click models of Google Analytics. So just don't ignore it. And then take advantage of every Google opportunity. Even though there's low volume in Google free shopping arena now, you want to be testing in that and measuring that. Just because it's not big now, I don't want to bet against what Google can do and the amount of money and engineers behind that. So play in those spaces. If you get opportunities for betas or alphas within Google, do it. There's so much win potential there. We've even repurposed things for the travel industry into e-commerce in a Google beta scenario, and the results were astronomical. It completely failed. It was an image beta back, it was probably 3-4 years ago, maybe a little longer than that, in the travel world, and we repurposed it for one of our large clients to sell their product, and it worked phenomenally well. But because it failed in the travel world, they took it away, and the beta didn't actually make it out. But it was great in the time it was, but it also gave us a lot of insights into Google Shopping and images now. And so it was the precursor to that. So just take advantage of those. You're going to get a lot of learnings. It may not always work, but you'll have learnings that you'll hopefully be ahead of your competitors as Google continues to evolve and drive things. So COVID-specific thoughts. There's a lot of businesses out there that have been changed. Most businesses are not the same as they were 2 months ago. Most of them. Either you're way up, you're way down, you're somewhere in the middle, but things are different. People are shopping differently. And so all businesses need to focus on trackable dollars. So if you have the ability to market right now, you want to be able to market where things are trackable. You don't necessarily want to be able to put a massive radio campaign out right now when you don't necessarily know the return on that. If you've been doing it for long enough, maybe you do have ways to track that, but I really do like the paid avenues within social and SEM because you can see the dollars now. If you're an online retailer, you need to be able to compete on price, or you need to own a product. If you're just retailing other people's products, it's going to be a constant struggle. Amazon is the largest retailer on the planet. That's how I look at them. They are a retailer. They don't owe me the customer data. I wouldn't be able to go to Nordstrom and ask them for all the customer data of the people that bought from me. It's just not how retailers work. That is a customer of the retailer. You are using them to advertise your brand, basically, and build your brand awareness so they will come buy from your site. Think of it that way. Try to own a product, develop your own products. Even if you have to have somebody initially white label it, like you're producing, somebody else is putting your name on their product initially to see how it's going to work, you need to start getting into that space. If you're retail with e-com, you are now e-com first. It's a reality of where we're at. I believe it should have been this way for a while, but now retailers are being forced to think this way. And my best example of a brand that is thriving in the retail space, even before this, Magnolia. If you know Chip and Joanna Gaines, or if you've heard those, there is legitimately no reason to go to Waco, Texas, unless you're going to Baylor. Like my wife has taken me there, but there's nothing there unless you're going to see Magnolia stuff. They have caused Waco, Texas, it's like a bump on a highway between Austin and Dallas. There's a reason to stop now, because they've created a brand and they've created a following. They just retail mostly other people's stuff. It's not like they're that unique in what they're selling. In fact, my wife in her retail store, she sells the same stuff they do, but she is not a destination yet. So she's considering how we're going to build our retail store into a destination that people actually want to be a reason to go to your space. It can't just be because you have lots of products to sell. You have to have a reason for that. If your brand's with retailers, so this is one of my companies, you want to own the customer always if you can, but you also understand that the retailers have a big place to push your product. It's a marketing channel for you. And so you want to control price. You don't want to be more expensive or less expensive than your retailers. So you need to just be aware of that. If you're a brand with retailers, everybody should be the same. It allows you as the brand to still get customers. But you have to support your retailers, and you have to think about this in unique ways. So I've actually gone to my retailers in this time where I knew they were closed down. They couldn't bring people into their stores. I've actually created products that I will sell on my site. It includes my product, but also includes their products that I didn't make. I don't have any item. It's not my product, but I'm willing to sell it for them. So they stay busy. They get to sell some of their stuff, and I'm also selling my product through my site. I get the customer data, they can ship, but I've gotten really creative at how I'm supporting retailers in helping them sell products online. Thankfully, I know a lot about digital marketing, so I can advise them. That's been helpful. But even that, it's just, I'm thinking way outside the box, testing and measuring all kinds of crazy ideas like, okay, you're a retailer, you can't open, you need to sell products. So if I sell it, I send you the money, I'll PayPal you, and you can ship it. You can put something in there in the box to bring them back to your local area. Just think creatively to try to help them. If you're a lead generation, you don't actually sell online, be aggressive. You've lost a lot of the ability to connect with customers face-to-face. In fact, the B2B space where we all go to conferences and meet people and have a drink and have fun there, isn't that great? That time that used to be back in 2019, oh, so great. A lot of companies, I talked to one woman, they did 30 conferences in 2019. They have a budget of $300,000, but that's the entire customer acquisition for their business was those 30 events. They don't have that, but they have $300,000 to spend. So my advice to her was, you need to start getting ClickFunnels together. You need to understand online marketing. You need to be able to get aggressive on LinkedIn appropriately, but moving sooner. If you haven't already started moving with that budget, you're probably behind the times. Probably speaking to the choir if you're on lead gen, but be aggressive. If you're a local storefront only, ouch, sorry. You need to grind. You need to find partners. We had some clients at Logical Position that were escape rooms. Nobody's going to escape rooms now. You can't sell an escape room online. They had to start getting creative with how they were going to start partnering with influencers in their city. Like, how are they going to get puzzles out? Like, get people that are the type of people that will come to an escape room when it does open back up. That how are you going to stay in front of them? What can you be doing to keep their brains engaged and stay in front of them? But you probably need to start becoming more of an e-com. How can you start selling things if possible? But how can you create a brand like Magnolia to bring people back when you can open? That's how you have to be thinking. And Eric, I agree, Texas is great. Austin's one of my favorite cities. I'm just talking specifically about Waco. Waco is not the most exciting city, but I've been there, and I'm sure my wife's going to take me back. Okay, do we have any? Here's my email. That NDA stuff with Google, if you want to get that signed and talk through it, we can look at Google Ads and pull some of the data down to help identify where your opportunities are going to be with that, just send me an email, mention the ThinkShop, and I'll know exactly what you're looking for. And then we can even do some deep dive into some of your strategy and goal setting. But I'm really excited to really talk to as many companies as possible because it's fun for me. Okay, so we've got, let me pull up the Q&A here. All right, so we have Meg. I mentioned you consider 2x ROAS a good goal for non-branded. That ROAS goal based on last click attribution in Google Analytics, where you combine last click and assisted. So would be a goal for 50% margin product where I'm breaking even. And I generally try to keep things simple. If you start down multi-attribution paths and analytics, your brain's going to hurt. It's just, it can get too complicated too fast. So a lot of times I'll use multi-funnel attribution when I'm starting to understand how a certain channel is playing in the space. But I've been in the space long enough that I still just like last click, last non-direct, which is analytics and how they track it. I base that on my last non-direct analytics. And then I take the halo effect and assisted conversions as gravy. Some brands we work with take that number, but they actually spend down to a loss. And so in very mature online businesses with high lifetime value, in fact, one of my clients was in the gift basket space. So if anybody comes to you and says, I want to be in the gift basket space, run away. Don't do it. You have to, it's super cash heavy. Most gift basket companies lose money on the first order, but they are so strong at email when they have their data dialed down. They know that people are going to buy 2 times through their email programs over the next 18 months. And so I sat down with the CFO and was like, okay, average order $100, average margins, ballpark 50%. We want to spend down to a 1-to-1 on non-brand and during a holiday season. So that's, you also have to do a lot of analysis on the time of year that people are buying and what impact that has on lifetime value. So in the gift basket space, generally speaking, at least the brand I know really, really well, if somebody bought during a holiday period, so 2 weeks before Mother's Day, 2 weeks before Easter, that's generally a gifter. And that person is going to come back and buy 2 times over the next 18 months through email. And if they buy in a non-holiday period, it could be a sympathy gift basket. It could be just a random birthday. But you have to be careful emailing those people in a non-holiday period, because if it is like I sent a sympathy basket to, my sister because her dog died, maybe I don't want to be reminded of that time through email. And so you have to message people differently and look at lifetime value a little bit differently. But break even generally for somebody that does get repeat buyers is good. So sometimes if you have a 60% margin, I think you spend down to 1.7. But I like taking a little bit of gravy and knowing that I am making some money somewhere through assisted conversions. That's generally how I look at it. But there's a lot of ways you can dive and slice data and get into the minutia. Any other questions or thoughts? Mo, do we have any?
Jasper's got a question there for you, Ryan.
All right, Jasper. And then Mo, if we have some of the data on some of those polls, if they're valuable, we can talk through that, or you can chat me. Profit later philosophy, driving competitor to the main point here. My profit later philosophy is generally winning. And so I know that if I get a customer that my competitor is not getting that customer, and that makes me feel good. And so that's really what I'm shooting for. And I also know that for my products, I build the products for lifetime value. Like, I'm not going to jump into a business if I know there's not a lifetime value there, because I really believe in that. The loyalty program space, even on Amazon, I'm working to build loyalty that comes back to my site by utilizing some strategies I learned from Annex Cloud, which is a phenomenal loyalty program. If you haven't talked to them, they have some great strategies there. So here we go. We do have some of the polls here. So we 33% of you cut Google ad spend, 53% increased, and 13% weren't advertising. So nobody eliminated, which is good. I have gone to the increased Google ad spend group. I've gotten even more aggressive than normal. Maybe I don't tell my wife how much we were spending, but we're getting a lot of business. E-commerce is a great place to be playing right now, which is where I play with my brands. All right. Any other questions or things I missed on there? I don't think so. Okay, good. So anybody wants to reach out, most of you are e-commerce on there. That's typical. What we expected from Bold is a lot of you are in the space of e-com and selling products. Feel free to email me, Ryan.Garrett@Logical Position. I love talking strategy. We can set a time to talk through and look at your strategy in Google Analytics and ads, and we can also talk through that NDA if it makes sense for your brand and how that can make sense, kind of let you in to see what Google is talking about coming next July. So it's just over a month away.